Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Reddit series video from the subreddit HFY, called Contact Procedures Volume 8 Chapter 3, written by MeatFcker. The link to the original will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Soulgate. As the Terran home fleet exchanged fire with the alien swarm that surrounded them, a much closer threat multiplied beyond their protective point defense networks and energy screens. Trillions of microscopic self-replicating robots were busily digesting the heavily armored outer hulls of the warships. They'd snuck through the defensive and a handful at a time, in tiny clumps that escaped the destruction of the swarm's missiles at the hands of the Terran point defense cannons. Then they latched onto the outer hull and started replicating. The TAS Defiant was the first vessel to fall, with its hull weakened and its matter annihilation reactor overtaxed. The heavy cruiser was torn in two by a focused grazer barrage. The Kitcher and the Hamilton and more than a score of similar ships soon followed. The home fleet closed ranks and drew their formation tighter. The swarm's onslaught continued unabated. TAS Redoubtable Soulgate. Lieutenant Dross stared blankly at his console, still trying to adjust to the loss of his HUD. Orders had gone through to the fleet to kill the neural implants grown into the brains of the Terran soldiers, reducing the slew of ocular projections, logic modules, and network data links into more than a scrap of carbon. The redoubtable screens whined again as they tried to absorb an incoming grazer blast, but as the half-hearted and listless effort, the ship rumbled on as its armor hull took the blow. The home fleet's flagship now reminded Dross of the last bear that he and his father had hunted before his old man had bought it during the first Battle of Sol. All that bulk and power was still there, but she was too run down to put up a fight. The weapons officer still counted himself lucky to have been stationed aboard the Dreadnought, though. Smaller battleships and heavy cruisers were already starting to succumb to the onslaught. 2/3 of his grazer blisters were offline and their crews scrambling to bring their massive cannons back online. There were 2 missiles left without the HUD, and he could not check the status of the grazers. But you didn't need a HUD for that. You could hear the screens creeping closer and closer towards the total meltdown with every shot. The only thing that seemed to be working without any signs of problems was the point defense network. At least Dross had thought that was until 15 minutes ago, when a certain Lieutenant Slater had burst into the bridge and informed the captain that the Redoubtable, and likely every other ship in the fleet, was crawling with self-replicating grey goop, and that these nanobots could apparently hack and disrupt the Terran neural implants. The brain flash orders responsible for this disorientation had followed shortly after. Dross's eyes made their twice-a-minute scan of the weapons console overview. Grazer 37 had come online, which was good, but one more blister couldn't make much of a difference against the swarm. He didn't even need to update the targeting parameters. The endless swarm of invaders that had the home fleet surrounded was nice enough to close any gaps that the Redoubtable's weapons might open up in their ranks. This was the kind of target-rich environment a wannabe hero dreamed about. Dross just wanted to go home and lay down next to his wife. He idly wondered which news network that she was watching for the battle coverage. A message popped up from the bottom right corner of his console, and Dross had already opened the attachment and skimmed the first page before he realized what he was reading. This was a communications packet. From Earth. That shouldn't have been possible. The swarm had blocked any attempt made by the home fleet to communicate with the outside of the fleet. Must have come in via courier, thought Dross. That would have taken some balls. The lieutenant stopped again halfway down the second page. He shouldn't have access to this. Why the hell was it on his console? A quick glance around the CIC showed him that he wasn't the only person facing the puzzle. The briefing was on every monitor, including the middle of the floor-to-ceiling view screen that Dross had been studiously ignoring since the swarm jumped into the system. He could work up a healthy enough respect for an unknown foe that could black out the stars without having to see them literally blacking out the stars. The Redoubtable's captain realized that the briefing was plastered on every display in the CIC a few moments after Dross. Rather than exploding, though, she only sighed. Consider this damn report unclassified, gentlemen. The Terran Alliance fleet's victory has always come on the strength and ingenuity of its crew. It makes no sense to cripple that by limiting your access to the information. Satisfied that he wouldn't be shot for looking at the top-secret document, Dross returned to his reading. It became very clear that they were losing nearly 2 hours of battle, and the swarm had barely shrunk. The home fleet had enough firepower to hold the swarm off, but nothing more. There was no way to break through. Dross frowned, and when he hit the section of the report detailing the composition of the swarm, if the ships were merging and splitting apart, it wasn't too much of a leap to assume that the entire swarm was just Grey Group given solid form. But how could the report have that much detail? The observation showed the swarm's reaction to the courier ship as it broke through. It shouldn't appear in the middle of the report on the enemy's vessel composition. He wrote a short program to look at the other contextual oddities, and then spent a solid 10 minutes tweaking its parameters until they were just right. Not a single status indicator on his weapons console changed while he worked. TAS Redoubtable Soulgate. Acting Sub-Lieutenant Sleek Wing's gentle glide studied the communications dump with interest. If he ignored the depressing bits, which was, granted, most of the report, it was really quite a fascinating read. The Neji small craft pilot hadn't had much to do with the duration of this battle, but sit in a readiness station and pray that she didn't have to fly into the inferno outside of the Redoubtable's sheltering hangar. Her flight crew, herself, Chief Petty Officer Haverford, and Master Spacer Walker, had distracted themselves with Pong tournament on their HUDs for the better part of an hour. But the flash orders had put an end to that. There had been nothing to do but listen to the Redoubtable's energy screen slowly die. Then a long, abandoned tablet had flashed to life, vibrating for all it's worth, and nearly sending the Sleek through the roof. Someone had really wanted everyone in the fleet to see these reports. Most of Sleek's time had been spent in the so-called anomalies in the report. One of the ship's lieutenants had posted a list of 17 pieces of intelligence that should have been impossible to gather prior to the launch of whatever the courier ship had braved the swarm to deliver the message, along with 4 snippets of analysis that stood out like gold nuggets of certainty in a sea of bet-hedging bird crap. "Hey, Haverford," called Sleek, "you did a decade of math in one of your fancy human universities. Take a look at some of these equations." The engineer hauled himself up from the spot on the floor. There was only 2 chairs in the cramped cockpit of the scout ship, and Walker was busy sleeping in one of the not occupied by the sub-lieutenant. And he walked over to Sleek. The portly man frowned. "There's some awfully big leaps in there, sir. Whoever wrote this must have been damn confident in its assumptions, but, maybe. Give me a sec." Haverford grabbed a tablet from Sleek, ignoring her protests and disappearing out the hatch. One of Sleek's unfurling wings caught Walker and the side of the head. The spacer looked around frantically. "We're launching! Ship about to explode! End of the world!" "Oh, sorry, Walker. Didn't mean to wake you." That was a lie. Sleek had no clue how Walker could even relax, much less sleep, with the Redoubtable screens whining and the hangar as the greatest shots splashed against the outer hull. She could barely keep her wings tucked neatly against her sides. Watching him slumber peacefully had been slowly driving her insane. "No worries, sir. Any news hit while I was out. Earth and Mars are on an evacuation standby, it seems. The Belt's doing what the Belt does best. Hiding. And we seem to be losing this fight." "That bad, huh?" Walker shrugged. "I'm sure we'll pull through. Wake me if we're about to die, sir." Walker rolled over and was about to close his eyes, but Haverford chose that moment to bustle onto the bridge. He held a mess of wires up in his one hand. "I did it!" "Did what?" "I built the generator for the frequency listed in the core dump, spliced one of our high-powered comm antennas onto my rifle's mini-reactor, and then fabbed and tweaked control chip for a template. This thing should really be able to pump out those EM waves." "Wait. You cracked into your rifle. Isn't that the first thing they tell us not to do in basic?" "Not dead yet, am I? Anyways, let's go test this out in some of the grey goop that's supposed to be swarming all over this ship." The portly engineer's face split into a predator grin. "This could be fun." Walker got up from his chair with a sigh. "Seems pretty clear that I'm not going to get any more sleep today. I'm in if it's okay with you, sir." Sleek glanced between the 2 men, wondering again why she'd been insane enough to seek out a frontline role. At times like this, she remembered just how terrifying these humans could be. She wanted to curl up into a ball or launch the ship and take her chances trying to outrun the swarm. Sleek said, "Let's get started." End of chapter. I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel or the author, all the stuff is down below. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.